There's a specific kind of silence that follows a decision you can't take back. It's not empty. It's heavy, filled with all the words you didn't say, all the choices you didn't make, all the life you didn't live. My name is James Whitman, and I'm about to tell you a story that started with a question on Reddit that broke the internet. 3 years ago, someone posted, "What's the one choice you regret 50 years later?" The top comment, with 847,000 upvotes, came from an account called Grace in Mississippi. I was 18. He was waiting in a baby blue Chevrolet at midnight. I watched from my window. I never got in the car. That was 1965. I think about it every single day. That comment was shared 2.3 million times, turned into TikToks, became a Twitter thread. People started sharing their own midnight Chevrolets, the choices they didn't make, the lives they didn't live. And then someone found Grace, the real Grace, living in Millwood, Mississippi, still in the same house, still going to the same church. And they asked her, "Tell us the whole story." What she told them changed everything. Because the story didn't end in 1965. It ended in 2018, with a recording that went viral, with a church scandal, with a secret that Grace had kept for 53 years. This is that story. Mississippi, 1965. A small town called Millwood, population 2,800. 3 churches, 2 gas stations, 1 high school. Grace Miller was the pastor's daughter, 18 years old. Perfect attendance at Sunday services, sang soprano in the church choir, never missed a prayer meeting. And she was in love with Danny Cole, a rock and roll musician who played the devil's music in a town that believed rock and roll was a highway to hell. For 6 months, they hid it. Then, one night, they decided to run. But Grace's father found out, and Grace made a choice that would haunt her for 53 years. But here's what nobody knew, not her children, not her church, not even her husband of 31 years. Grace recorded everything. Every conversation, every goodbye, every moment she chose safety over freedom. And in 2018, her daughter found the tapes. Let me take you back. Summer 1965. Main Street had Henderson's Five and Dime, where RC Cola cost a nickel. The Rialto Theater showed movies for 25 cents. The Bluebird Diner served coffee for a dime. And at the center of everything, First Baptist Church. White clapboard building, bells that rang every Sunday at 10 a.m. sharp. Reverend Thomas Miller had led that congregation for 12 years. Stern, absolute. A man who believed in right and wrong with nothing in between. Grace was his only daughter. Her mother had died when she was 12. After that, it was just Grace and her father. Church every Sunday, Wednesday, Friday. No dancing, no movies with boys, no music except hymns. Home by 9 p.m. every night. Grace never questioned it, not out loud. But at night, alone in her room, she'd turn on her radio. Volume low, headphones on. And she'd listen to Memphis stations. Chuck Berry, Little Richard, Elvis. The music her father called the devil's soundtrack. She'd listen and imagine a different life, a louder life, a freer life. Then, in March 1965, Danny Cole came to town. Danny was 21, from Memphis, played guitar in a band called the Ramparts. They traveled through small southern towns, playing high school gymnasiums and county fairs. They weren't famous, weren't going to be famous, but they were good. And they were loud. Grace showed me a photograph once. Danny at 21. Dark hair, black leather jacket, red Fender Stratocaster. "He looked dangerous," Grace said. "That's what my father would have said. Dangerous. Wrong. Worldly." She smiled. "He was the most alive person I'd ever seen." Have you ever met someone who made you realize you'd been asleep your whole life? The Ramparts played at the high school gymnasium on a Saturday night in March. 50 cents admission. Grace wasn't supposed to go, but her friend Carol convinced her. "Your father's visiting the sick in Jackson. Won't be back until midnight." "Come on, Grace. Live a little." So Grace went. Wore a blue dress she'd made herself. Borrowed Carol's lipstick. Felt like a criminal and a revolutionary all at once. The gymnasium was packed. 200 teenagers. Cigarette smoke, Brill cream, and Aquanet hairspray. And then the Ramparts started playing. "I'd never heard anything that loud," Grace told me years later. "That alive. It was like every hymn I'd ever sung had been sleeping, and suddenly, someone woke it up." Danny saw her singing along, came over at the break. "You know the words," he said. "I wasn't supposed to," Grace admitted. "But you do." "Yes." "Good. I like a girl who knows good music when she hears it." They talked for 20 minutes. When the band started again, Danny asked her to dance. She said yes. After that night, Danny found reasons to stay in Millwood. He and Grace would meet in secret. Behind Henderson's Five and Dime, at the town park after dark. At the Starlight Drive-In, pretending to watch movies. One night in May, they met at the Bluebird Diner. Sat in a corner booth. Danny fed the jukebox a quarter. Unchained Melody. Stand By Me. In My Life. When In My Life played, Danny took Grace's hand. "Come with me," he said. "What?" "Leave Millwood. We'll go to Memphis, Nashville, anywhere. I'll play music. You'll sing. We'll figure it out." "Danny, I'm serious, Grace. I love you. I don't care about your father or this town or what anyone thinks." Grace looked at their hands, his guitar-calloused fingers wrapped around hers. She wanted to say yes. Every cell in her body wanted to say yes. But she said, "Let me think about it." And here's what nobody knew. Grace had a tape recorder in her purse, a small reel-to-reel she'd borrowed from the school library. She was recording everything. Danny's voice, the jukebox music, her own racing heart. She wanted proof that it was real, that he was real, that she had a choice, even if she didn't take it. 2 weeks later, Grace decided she would go. She would choose Danny, choose freedom. They made a plan. Saturday, June 12th, 1965, midnight. Danny would pick her up in his baby blue Chevrolet. They'd drive to Memphis, start over. Grace spent 2 weeks preparing, saving babysitting money, 50 cents an hour, choosing what to pack, writing a letter to her father, and recording everything. Every conversation with Danny, every moment of doubt, every prayer she whispered alone in her room. "I don't know why I'm doing this," she said into the recorder one night. "Maybe someday I'll want to remember, or maybe I'll want to forget, and this will help me remember what I'm trying to forget." But on Friday night, June 11th, the night before they were supposed to leave, Carol's mother saw Grace and Danny together at the Bluebird Diner, and Carol's mother told Reverend Miller. When Grace came home at 9 p.m., her father was waiting. He sat in his leather chair, the room dark except for one lamp. "Sit down, Grace." She sat, heart pounding. the tape recorder hidden in her cardigan pocket, still running. "I've heard some things," Reverend Miller said, "about you, about a boy, a musician." Grace didn't answer. Is it true? She could have lied, should have lied, but she'd been raised not to lie. "Yes," she said. Her father's jaw tightened. "How long?" 3 months. "And you didn't think to tell me?" "You wouldn't have understood." "No," Reverend Miller said. "I wouldn't have. Because there's nothing to understand. He's a vagabond, a musician, playing devil's music." "He's not like that," Grace said. "He's good, he's kind, He's leading you away from God." "No, he's not." "Then what is he doing, Grace?" Grace's hands were shaking. The recorder was still running. "I love him." Her father stood. "You don't know what love is. You're 18. You think you know, but you don't." "I do know." "No. You're my daughter. You're a child of God, and I won't let you throw your life away." Grace stood too. "What if I want to?" "Then you're not the daughter I raised." Reverend Miller walked to the window, looked out at the dark street. "Here's what's going to happen. You're going to stop seeing this boy. Immediately. You're going to be the Grace I know, the Grace your mother would have wanted." "And if I don't?" Grace's voice barely a whisper. Her father turned. "Then you'll leave this house, tonight. You won't be my daughter anymore. You won't be welcome in this family or this church." Grace stared at him. "You can't mean that." "I do. You choose, Grace, right now. Him or me. But you don't get both." Grace was 18 years old, $57 in her pocket. No mother, no siblings, no family except the man demanding she choose. What would you have done? "I stood there," Grace said into the recorder that night, alone in her room. "And I thought about Danny, about his smile, about Memphis and music and the life we could have. But I also thought about my father, about how scared I was, about how I'd never been farther than Jackson in my whole life. And I chose safety. I chose my father. I chose staying." At midnight, Danny pulled up outside in his baby blue Chevrolet, engine running, waiting. Grace stood at her window with the tape recorder. She pressed record. "I'm not coming," she whispered into the microphone. "I'm so sorry, Danny. I'm not brave enough. I'm not strong enough. I'm choosing fear, and I'll regret this for the rest of my life." At 12:20 a.m., Danny drove away. Grace recorded the sound of the engine fading, the silence that followed. Then she turned off the recorder. Grace married Robert Hayes in 1967, a good man, lumber mill worker. Her father approved. They had 2 children. Grace raised them the same way she'd been raised. Church every Sunday. Safe. Respectable. Robert died in 1998. They'd been married 31 years. Grace loved him in a quiet, steady way, but it wasn't the way she'd loved Danny. For 50 years, Grace kept those tapes, 12 cassettes, hidden in a shoebox in the back of her closet, labeled Music 1965. She never listened to them, too painful, but she never threw them away either. In 2015, Grace made that Reddit post, Grace in Mississippi, the one that went viral. She didn't expect anyone to care. She was 71 years old. It was just a comment, a confession, a way of saying out loud what she'd been carrying for 50 years. But millions of people cared. They shared their own stories, their own regrets, their own midnight Chevrolets. And then someone found Grace, a journalist. They asked for an interview. Grace said yes. For the first time in 50 years, she told the whole story. And she showed them the tapes. "I recorded everything," she said. "I wanted proof that I had a choice, that it was real." "Can we listen?" they asked. Grace hesitated, then nodded. They listened to 18-year-old Grace talking to Danny, laughing, planning their escape. You could hear the hope in her voice, the fear, the love. They listened to the conversation with her father, the ultimatum, the silence. They listened to Grace at midnight, standing at the window. "I'm not coming." "I'm so sorry, Danny. I'll regret this for the rest of my life." The journalist asked, "Can we share this?" Grace looked at the tape player, at the voice of her younger self. "Yes," she said. "Share it. Maybe someone else will be braver than I was." But what happened next, Grace didn't expect. Someone found Danny. The interview was published online in December 2015. The audio clips were embedded in the article. Within 48 hours, 12 million views. Within a week, 44 million views. People started searching for Danny Cole, former members of the Ramparts, anyone who knew what happened to him. And then, on Christmas Eve 2015, a comment appeared on the article. "This is Danny. I'm alive. I'm in Nashville. Grace, if you're reading this, I never forgot you either." Grace saw the comment on Christmas morning. Her daughter Emily was visiting. Grace showed her the screen. "Mom," Emily said, "are you okay?" Grace was crying. "He's alive. He's alive and he remembers." Within hours, the story exploded. Grace and Danny found each other after 50 years. But Grace didn't want a reunion. She was 71. Danny was 73. They'd both lived full lives. Both married other people. Both had children, grandchildren. "I don't need to see him," Grace told a reporter. "I just needed to know he's okay, that he had a good life, that me staying didn't destroy him." But Danny sent her a message through the journalist. "Grace, I spent 1 year being angry. Then I spent 49 years being grateful. Grateful I got to know you. Grateful for those 6 months. You didn't destroy me. You showed me what love could be. I've had a good life. I hope you have too." Grace read that message 17 times. Then she recorded one final tape, her last message. "Danny, I hope you hear this. Thank you for loving me when I was 18. Thank you for showing me what alive felt like. I'm sorry I wasn't brave enough, but I'm grateful you were." She uploaded it to YouTube. Title, "To Danny from Grace, 50 years later." That video has 287 million views. The comments are from people sharing their own regrets, their own midnight Chevrolets, their own Graces and Dannys. "My father wouldn't let me marry the man I loved. I married someone else. 40 years of wondering, what if? I had a chance to move to Paris. I stayed for my family. I'll never know what my life could have been. This made me call the person I let go 10 years ago. We're meeting next week. Grace Miller died in January 2018. She was 74. At her funeral, they played In My Life by the Beatles in First Baptist Church, the same church where she'd spent 50 years being the pastor's daughter. Some people frowned, some whispered, but most understood. Grace had lived a good life, a safe life, a respectable life. But she'd spent 50 years wondering about the other one. And in the end, she wanted people to know she had a choice. She made it. She lived with it. But she never stopped wondering. So let me ask you, what choice are you making out of fear right now? What midnight Chevrolet is waiting for you? Grace's video has 287 million views. But more importantly, it has 4.2 million comments. People sharing their regrets, their what-ifs, their courage to try again. One comment, pinned at the top, from Danny's daughter. Dad watched Grace's video every day until he died in 2019. He said it was the most beautiful gift anyone ever gave him. Proof that he mattered, that their love mattered, that 6 months in 1965 changed 2 lives forever. If you're carrying a choice you regret, share it below. Not to judge, to honor, to remember, to help someone else be braver than we were. Grace recorded her story so we could learn from it. What's yours? Don't let fear write your ending. The Chevrolet is still waiting. Are you getting in?